It can be really easy when we are thinking about what we want to sew to go for the same kind of styles, the same kind of techniques, similar silhouettes every time. For me, especially in the summer months, tend to go for floaty dresses, maxi length, lots of gathers. So this month I want to try something a little bit different. So the Pattern Scout Vivi Dress and Blouse is a really stunning shirt dress. It has a waistline, it's got darts at the sides, bust and darts at the waist. I think it's got a little dart in the shoulders as well, and it comes in a size 0 to 30 and a B, C or D cup option as well. So there's lots of great range in terms of the sizing. I am going for, looking down at my notes, a size 18 at the bust, and then I'm grading up to a 24 at the waist. So it's quite a big grading situation. So I've done on the paper pattern here, so I've started from where the dart finishes here and graded out there. So fingers crossed that goes well. I am going to use this incredible tropical print cotton. It's a really wide length as well, and it is perfect for a shirt dress. Okay, I am all cut out and ready to start sewing. In order to fit the dress onto 2.5 meters of the cotton, I had to cut most of it on the flat. So instead of folding it in half and cutting 2 pieces mirrored, I had to open it out, cut each piece, and then flip it over to mirror it in order to get it all cut out of 2.5 meters. And I did it. I just about squeezed it out. So I'm really, really proud of myself for that. Now, the first thing to do is apply interfacing to the facing pieces. And interestingly, Pattern Scout uses a technique that I've never come across before, and it makes total sense. Normally, when I apply interfacing to facing pieces, I press the interfacing on and then finish the outside edges. But this technique involves sewing the interfacing, so putting the wrong side of the interfacing, which is the side without the glue, onto the right side of your facing pieces, sew it together with whatever seam allowance, in this case it was 5/8 of an inch, trimming down the seam allowance and clipping into the corners, and then folding it the right way round so that the glue side is now on the wrong side of your fabric, and then pressing it on to glue it. And it makes this really, really lovely, lovely finish. So there's no overlocking, there's no zigzag stitch, it's just a really nice, clean finish. Honestly, I think I'm gonna do this every time now because I just think it looks so much nicer. Just quickly, I always forget how much I love the look of a French seam. I'm usually really lazy and use my overlocker, but that means I need to rethread my overlocker. I got the black threads out, and it is fairly easy to change my overlocker threads. I've got the hang of it where I snip the threads and tie them on and then feed them through. But the instructions for this dress suggests using French seams, so I thought, you know what, let's do it. Let's do French seams, and it does look really nice. So if you don't know how to do French seams, first of all, you have to sew your fabric wrong sides together. Normally you sew right sides together and then finish the seam. To do a French seam, you start by sewing wrong sides together, a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way down. You then trim the seam, press the seam open, and then press the fabric, bring the fabric then round right sides together, press it again so that the original seam is right on the edge, and then you sew with a 2/8 of an inch or a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then you press that open like you would normally, and you end up with a beautifully finished seam where all the raw edges are completely enclosed inside the seam, and it's lovely. It is really nice. It does give a really nice effect. This is especially useful if you are using a fabric that frays really easily and if you don't have an overlocker. If you don't have an overlocker and you have a fabric that frays, I don't recommend using a zigzag stitch. I really recommend going that extra step and doing a French seam to give that fabric some real stability. As this is cotton, I could just very easily do a zigzag stitch and it would be fine. But I like a slightly more professional finish these days. So apparently we are setting in sleeves flat, like you do with knit garments, on a woven garment. Apparently this is, I don't know if I've missed something. Normally with a woven fabric, you sew your sleeve together, you sew your side seams, and then you insert the sleeve into the sleeve, the arm, I never know how to say it. Is it arm side? I can never quite be sure. And then if you're sewing a stretch fabric, you attach your sleeve flat and then you sew from the sleeve hem all the way down to the hem. And apparently that's what we're doing here. And I have another garment that I am making at home, a shirt, and that's done the same method. I am here for it. If this is what we're doing now, if this works and creates exactly the same look, then this is so much easier than setting in a sleeve the traditional way. So I have attached the sleeves and I'm not using my overlocker at all. I've decided to do an overlocker free garment because you don't need an overlocker for everything. If you're sewing something with a cotton frays a little bit, but not as much as a viscose. So if you use French seams or just a zigzag seam, which is what I've done here, you should be fine. So this is what I'm gonna do. And also my overlocker is at home and has white thread, so I'm gonna stick with this. So sleeves are in. Next is sewing from the sleeve seam down to the hem, not the hem because we've got to attach the skirt, down to the waistline. And then I'm not sure what happens next, if it's the skirt attach or the collar. But yeah, it's all coming together rather nicely. Cue mid-project panic that it's not going to fit. I have assembled most of the bodice. The collar is attached and the front facings are attached to this point. I tried it on before attaching the front facing, and it felt a little bit tight, especially on the sleeves. So the pattern comes as either a sleeveless dress or a full-length sleeve blouse, obviously with the idea that you can add sleeves to the sleeveless dress as well. I decided I wanted some sleeve, but I didn't want full-length sleeve because this is going to be a summer dress, but I didn't want sleeveless. It's not something that I feel particularly comfortable with. So I added just a little, I just cut the sleeves off. And originally I cut them off a bit too long. So when I tried it on just now, the sleeve was finishing here and there was barely any movement. So I've chopped it off to about here. I haven't tried it on again since. Fingers crossed that will be enough. Of course I haven't toiled, obviously. I find toiling really boring. So that's where we're at. We're going to move on to the skirt now. So the skirt panels, you've got 2 back panels, 2 front panels. French seam them together, do the front facing, attach the skirt to the bodice. Have I got enough time to do this today? Probably not. I've got 1 hour and 20 minutes before I have to switch back into mum mode, but I will get this finished tomorrow. So I'm going to do what I can today, and hopefully tomorrow will just be a case of finishing off and hemming and adding buttons. I forgot that buttons need doing on this as well. Okay, right, cracking on. Okay, back again, ready for the last part. I have attached the skirt piece to the bodice piece, and I'm about to do a flat felled seam. So where everything else has been finished with French seams, the bodice to skirt seam is suggested to finish with a flat felled seam. So I'm about to do that. And I think I have done a flat felled seam once, and that was in like a school lesson where we were learning about different seam finishes. So it's quite exciting to add a new technique to my repertoire. So to do a flat felled seam, you sew your pieces. So in this instance, I'm going to be sewing my bodice to my skirt. But this would be the same if you were doing it on a trouser leg seam or something like that. So in this instance, you sew your bodice to your skirt right sides together with the 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, or whatever seam allowance your pattern suggests. Then you cut one of the seams, one of the seam allowances. In this case, it's the bodice seam allowance. And then you basically, it's kind of like bias binding. You then take the wider seam allowance, fold it up to the stitching line, and then you fold it back over up onto the bodice in this instance, and then you edge stitch it down. So that's a really nice way of finishing. I'm not sure why we're choosing a flat failed seam over another French seam. Maybe the French seam because you have to sew quite narrow, perhaps. Or maybe it's because it's quite bulky. But that's what we're going to do. A flat failed seam. And then we're just finishing off the collar and the buttonholes and the buttons, and we're nearly done. Ta-da! It is finished. It's actually been a couple of weeks since I nearly finished making it. Yesterday I hemmed the sleeves, and today I've just done the buttons. So it's been a couple of weeks in between videos, but it's finished. Da, 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 da. I don't know if I like it. I loved sewing it. The pattern was really easy to work with, really easy to follow. The fabric is beautiful and the fabric was gorgeous to work with. I'm just not sure if this is a pattern that suits my body shape. So there's a few things. If I decided that I did like the pattern, I would alter a few fit issues. First of all, the darts at the side, I would need to lower them a little bit. They're about a centimetre off where they should be. And I've got a bit too much excess fabric in my back due to the old sway back that most of us, I think, have. The other thing, I've added sleeves that I need to adjust. I would need to do a full bicep adjustment. There's not much room in the sleeves for me to move around. I have got quite chunky arms. So yeah, those are the main things. I also feel like I need to bring the side seams in a little bit, but then I would worry I wouldn't have as much room to move around. But those are the main fit issues that I would change. However, I'm not sure if I will be making this pattern again. Like I said, the pattern is lovely. The pattern is beautiful. The instructions were really clear, really simple to work with. I just don't think it's right for my body. I feel like it ages me a little bit. I feel like I look much older than I want to feel. It's not a style that I'm used to. I'm used to very floaty dresses. If I'm wearing a dress, I'm used to dresses that are very floaty, that I can easily move around in. I wouldn't call myself the most elegant and composed of people. And in a dress like this, I feel like I need to be quite composed, which just doesn't really work for me. So yeah, I feel like maybe it's shirt dresses. Maybe shirt dresses just don't quite work for me. Where I have got a bit of a belly and I've got big boobs, the style of the shirt I feel kind of makes my boobs and belly kind of merge into one and doesn't give me any definition underneath my bust to create at least the illusion of a waist. There is a waist there. I feel like where I tend to go for dresses with gathers and floatiness, I can bring it in at the waist with ties or belts or things like that. But yeah, it's not working for me on this one. I've had an idea. Okay, I think I have rescued it. Although I loved the finished dress and I was really proud of how it was finished, I just didn't feel comfortable in it, and I don't think I ever would have worn it as it was. However, I was really happy with the bodice. This, you know, the bodice bit fitted beautifully, and just sort of from here I can see that I really, really love it. So I didn't want all that work to go completely to waste. So I drafted a half circle skirt. I used the By Hand London circle skirt calculator. If you just go over to their website, they've got a calculator, you type in your measurements and what length you want, and it gives you the radius for the waist. So I did that. Obviously I did have to use a bit more fabric. Luckily I had some left over, but I'm so happy with it. I am just, now it's a dress that I will want to wear all the time. The other thing I did was I took off the sleeves. The sleeves were feeling really tight and cutting into my arms. I also didn't like the length. So I did a full bicep adjustment of about 1 inch and added some extra length, which I'm rolling it up to just below my elbows. And yeah, I love it now. I feel amazing in this dress. So I've gone from a dress that I didn't think I was ever gonna wear to a dress that feels perfect for me now. So it just goes to show that if you make something and it doesn't feel right for you, just have a little think about it for a little while and see if there's anything you can do to modify it to make it your style, because then hopefully you'll end up with the most perfect thing in the world. I'm so glad I went for it with the circle skirt. I hate altering clothes. It's normally I would put it away and it would go in the naughty corner and I just would never ever think about it ever again. But I'm glad I persevered with this. So there you go. Thank you so much everyone for watching. When it comes to editing this, it's gonna be all over the place, but we'll figure it out. Have a wonderful day and I will see you all really soon.